Welcome back to Zuma's webinar series, where we break down what's actually working for modern property management teams. Now, today's topic, property marketing education for on-site teams. In multifamily, we talk a lot about marketing strategy, ILS optimization, paid media, SEO, brand voice, and AI tools. But here's the question that we probably don't talk enough about. Are we actually equipping on-site teams to understand the marketing engine that they're operating inside of? Because at the end of the day, they're answering the leads, they're managing the tours, they're handling some of the follow-ups, and they're really shaping the prospect experience. And if they don't understand how the marketing stuff works, well, performance does suffer. So today we're unpacking what on-site teams actually need to know about marketing, where the education gaps are, and what we can do to fix it. So please join me in today's session. Thank you all for joining me. Would love to do a brief round of intros. So we'll pass the mic to you, Angie, if you want to get started.
Sure. Hi, my name is Angie DeWitt. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at JVM Realty.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Proehl. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at RangeWater.
And hello, my name is Shellie, Greer, and I'm the Director of Lifestyle for Ovation Property Management in Las Vegas.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have all of you. Thank you for joining me for this webinar. Today, we have a really interesting topic, which is really how marketing, operations all work together to really drive efficiency at properties, right? And so first topic we have today is really why, on-site marketing education matters more than ever. So would love to understand from your guys' perspective, why is marketing education for on-site teams becoming more critical? And maybe if someone wants to talk to kick us off, I would love to hear that. I can share a little bit from my perspective. I remember, when I joined as a leasing agent to start my career in property management, things were kind of simple, and honestly, we had maybe a Gmail inbox, and it was all about billboard signage, right? And how can we get the best signage? And then, we started to talk a little bit about ILS marketing and, connecting things like that. But it felt like things weren't as complex, back then. Sure, we didn't have systems, but there wasn't also as much need for education in that regard, or maybe it was just that the form was different. But I'd love to hear from you guys, what your perspective is on the situation right now.
I can share a thought on that. I think very similar to what you just shared. Even as trained marketers, and we've all chosen to do this, and it's fun, we really enjoy it. Every couple weeks, it feels like there's something new to learn. Something has changed. Something is different. When I went to school for marketing 9 years ago, I think everything I learned in my master's program doesn't even apply anymore. It's just a constantly evolving thing. So by starting to really train our site teams now on marketing, it's going to make it a little easier in the long run, since those layers just continue to build. Things get more complex. Things get more complicated. Where if you take SEO, for example, it's already, I think, a bit complicated to understand when you're not in marketing. Now we also have GEO. And to understand GEO, you need to understand SEO. And it's just stair steps into more and more layers of things that we need to learn and educate. So by really kind of getting ahead of that now, we are ready as things start to shift to really just continue to keep our teams educated.
Totally. And are you seeing the need moving more towards educating site teams as well? Because I think that's also one of the big questions is how much of this education is really corporate strategy, right? And sort of higher level education in terms of implementation and, being able to run these more complex marketing initiatives effectively. And how much does that require really educating and up-leveling, teams that are actually on site?
So JVM is very, very invested in educating our team members, and our on-site team members are leasing and marketing associates, leasing and marketing managers. So we've already started to really ingrain in that role that this is a marketing level. So even the SEO and GEO example, we are educating our teams on what that is, so that as they're even searching things or they're hearing things, they can come to us hey, can we update or adjust our SEO strategy? And then they know what they're asking us. They know what they want to adjust. So we've put a lot of time over the last year or two into really kind of showing them what is in your marketing toolkit so that they're able to know if we need a quick solution or we need a more long-term strategy, they know what those levers are that they can pull. So that's been a really big focus of mine since I started. And since, I've built out my team of just really working with our team so that they don't feel so overwhelmed of we're not getting traffic or something is shifting and we need to change something, but they know what these different tools are that they can reach out to us and kind of ideate and brainstorm on. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Anyone else?
I have a question about that, Angie. Do you feel like the employees that come in, they already have like a knack for this? Or are you able to train people, off the street, these kind of measures and things? Or do you just find that some just naturally, take on to this?
I think it's a tremendous blend of all of that, where we've got some team members that sales is just like their forte. They're amazing at it and they love the marketing component. Other team members, they're just people. They like to interact with others, and that's kind of what got them into leasing. So I think we've got a blend, which is a lot of fun. I love talking about marketing and educating on marketing. So it's a lot of fun to show even the team members that maybe are, off the street and this is not what they envisioned doing, like how much fun it can be and like how they can really feel more tied to their community by doing social media strategies and B2B marketing and just really kind of building out what marketing entails instead of just thinking of the website and their ILSs. It's like, also it's what is the experience you're creating for your residents on site? What are you showing people that the community life is like? I think there's just, once you start to learn about marketing, there's so much fun that they can have with it. And so we're slowly, I would say, converting people that did not intend to be marketers into really kind of enjoying that a lot.
Do you find that hard to control? Or because sometimes people get rogue with their TikToks, or it's not really representing the company in a certain way. What kind of parameters do you guys put in for that? Just curious.
That's a really good question. So we do a lot of social media emphasis at GVM, and that's been one of the most fun things that we've really ramped up in the last year. So early last year, we started really heavily encouraging Reels. I'm a fan of humorous marketing, and I think it's really engaging. People are going to stop scrolling if it's something fun to watch. But we also were like, that could go a little bit far. So then we would have to kind of dial some things back here or there, just if it goes off the rails. And you'd be like, objectively, that was very funny, but you can't do that from the business Instagram account. So just really kind of like a reframe of what's a different way you could do this. Instead of a contest of who gets to go home first, it's who gets to stay later and hang out with more of the residents, and just kind of pivoting what that trend might be. So we had an approvals process set up for the first couple of months last year. And then as we saw teams successfully kind of taking off and building out their strategies and appropriately doing so, we turned off the approvals just as we went. And now we just have notifications on for all of our properties on Instagram. So I get really excited if I see so-and-so is a new reel and we get to go watch it. And if there is anything that we're I don't know about that one, we'll just reach out and they'll pull it back down. But we don't need to have as many guardrails as we did, just because we've done so much, education on it and discussion on it, and just really, I think, showing more how much fun it can be, even if you are kind of staying within professional guidelines.
Yeah, I think just to build on that too, I think that the best content, Shellie, or Angie, like you were saying, is more the organic content. So when you have those guardrails in place, sometimes it can feel a little bit forced. We have a unique position at RangeWater. We have a social media manager who's constantly looking out for new trends and educating the teams on how they can play into some different social media trends. So we've seen a lot of really great reels and posts come out of that, but also monitoring to make sure that we're not disturbing the branding of the site by just trying to capitalize on all the fun trends too.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really fun topic, right? I think that we're actually starting our own initiative at Zuma, doing, kind of viral comedy reels for Instagram as well. It's something that everyone's now aware of and kind of questioning, how far do we go, right? How much do we try to connect with our audience, just make this purely funny? And how much do we try to uphold our brand image as well? And I think it's something it sounds like many people are asking, and whether there's an approvals process, an individual manager. But I think this goes into a larger discussion in terms that I've always wondered, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion in terms of how much, what are the levers and dimensions of latitude that we allow the on-site teams, the regionals to have in terms of how they're running marketing? And when I say marketing, I don't mean just ILS listings and stuff like that. I mean like everything you're talking about. It's sort of like the way the brand shows up for residents, the way that we engage them, the way that like we tour them, the way that we think about our communication strategy, automation strategy. And I think that I hear this both ways, right? Some businesses and PMCs manage a huge variety of communities, right? And so, the same thing that works for a Class A building in Los Angeles isn't going to work for a Class C building in maybe Denver or the outskirts of Denver. So, but at some level, there can also be a fragmentation where like the loss of uniformity and the presents a fragmentation of the brand and also just potentially chaos for having a uniform training and operations strategy. So would love to hear from you guys in terms of like how you guys go about approaching giving people some latitude, giving site teams latitude, but also not like maybe potentially too much if there is such thing.
So I'll take this one, or I'll start us off. I think that now with so much automation in today's world and just all the different pieces of marketing that continue to be layered on and technologies and those kind of things, I think it can be a lot for the on-site teams to have to keep up with. And they very much need to understand the full marketing ecosystem of their community to understand how they're going to actually maintain these leads and execute on them. So I think really that comes down to obviously the experience, but so much more that they understand the funnel and understand the full process, that not all leads are going to be equal. So just thinking through that source intent and then making sure that we're educating them on the right speed and the handoffs when we have AI agents in there in the mix, making sure that they are totally understanding the actual process, because if that process breaks, then everything just kind of falls apart on the marketing strategy. Our marketing strategy is only as good as what the on-site teams are able to help us execute on. So that's super important. It's really not that they have to be marketers, but we need them to think like marketers.
I like that. And do you see them, I think companies kind of talk about this differently, and at some level it's semantics, but do you see the on-site teams kind of falling under operations that think like marketing, or are they, marketing that like have to do operational tasks?
I would say both. And our marketing team here at RangeWater, we very much want them to feel like they are a part of the entire strategy, because like I said, without them involved in the execution of it, our strategy is meaningless. So I think it's a culmination of things, but I think it's important that they understand how it operates, but also that they see us as an extension of their team and pull us in where we can help on the execution as well.
And maybe a question for the group that I've been wondering is like, we've talked about how automation is changing things and we're seeing some centralization of certain functions. How do we think about the real job description for, leasing agents or for the people on site? Have you changed the job descriptions? Have you potentially made them more targeted for us to a specific job profile? I would be really curious to understand that. I know back when I was on site and working in property management, if you can call it a leasing agent, but it really felt like you just did everything, right? Like we were like collecting like money orders. We were like the residents were calling, the fire department was coming in for elevator checks. Like, so it felt like there was so many different things that you had to be good at. It was kind of like finding a jack of all trades. But I'm wondering now, are you finding potentially a more targeted job profile and skill set for these people who are now expected to be semi-influencers as well? I would love to hear that.
So at JVM, our on-site team used to be leasing associates. So it's been in the last couple of years that and marketing section has been added in. So I know there's been evolution to the job descriptions, and we've had some conversations even just like the last couple of weeks of how can we, adjust this further to be a little bit more clear, because we will have, people interview and then they hear, oh, you're also running the social media, or you also have a brand kit and Canva and you're going to design your own flyers, where they maybe historically worked places where it was more like top down marketing, where corporate marketing kind of just like dished out directives and you just kind of ran with it. Whereas we want to empower our teams more to kind of work with us and we learn from each other. So that's definitely been an area that just very recently we've been like, maybe we should, readjust these a little bit so that we do kind of set that expectation ahead of interviews or ahead of, whatever it might be.
And for Ovation, we are the top down. So since we have everything local, it's easier, I think, to do it that way because we're already here together. And it's easier to centralize, geographically, as we all know.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense too, because I'm from West Virginia and now I live in downtown Chicago and I've never been to Kansas City, but a third of our portfolio is in Kansas City. So it's no matter how many times you visit a property from the corporate office, with the exception of everything being in one location, which is amazing, you're never going to be as strong of a location expert as the people that are actually working at the property. And I feel like that's where like the marketing education of even just like the B2B marketing, the selling the experience, the selling the location, they are always going to be better at it. So being able to kind of share that information back and forth, but also just be approachable and respectful and kind so that they are comfortable coming to us being like, hey, we'd like to adjust our strategy and target these employers instead of these on our geo-targeting. We're like, cool, let's do it. Like, you know best, you know what's coming in. So it's really cool just to kind of learn from the teams on what like the different geography.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's really that empowerment of the on-site teams, and that kind of ties back into the educational piece of they're the CEOs of the community. We are here to support them and give them the right tools and guidance and help build out that strategy. But it's really important that their input, they feel heard and that it's submitted often. So our strategic marketing managers are talking to these teams several times a month, different touch points, whether it be weekly, bi-weekly, getting feedback on how's this going? Do we need to pivot? Everything can look so perfect on paper, but they're boots on the ground experts. So it's a lot of collaboration and just making sure that we feel like a cohesive team versus kind of split operationally.
Yeah, that totally makes sense from that regional perspective because every place is so different. Just like even within our own portfolio here in Las Vegas, I noticed that these individual communities, even though they have the same brand name, because we do a lot of brand name at street, these individual communities are so individual with personalities and they take on a different personality depending on the different demographics that are there in that region. So it's very interesting to see. So I can totally see how that relates. And I can also speak to the point about giving our teams tools and training to handle these leads, because we can get the leads to the door all day long, but does the team have the tools to get these leads to convert to leases? So with AI and all the agentic AI, it sometimes makes things confusing, in my opinion, because you have a real person trying to reach out, you have the different CMS systems, and it can be overwhelming for the user. But it's important to give teams the things that they need.
And Kendrick, that goes back to a little bit what you were saying on like, how do we redefine these roles, or how are we redefining the role of a leasing agent? And I know at RangeWater, obviously with AI being such a huge piece of the strategy and using AI chatbots, I think it's really empowering them to embrace AI and how that kind of shifts their role. I think when it first kind of came to market, everyone was really scared of AI because everyone thinks, AI is coming for my job. And we have empowered them to think AI is not going to replace you, but you need to embrace it to make this ecosystem flow more smoothly and the handoff. So we've really, pushed our teams at RangeWater to use it as a tool and as something to help them. But it's really redefining that human touch on site and creating those experiences that AI cannot create for them.
Yeah. And I think it's very important to make sure that it's really, assisting them and enabling them, right? I think that that's one thing that we see is like there are so many tools now at on-site levels disposal. And some of these tools can actually sometimes make it even more confusing for the resident, right? When there's a specific application tool, application link, there's 5 different things that you're being contacted by and you need to go fill out. I think it's important that these tools are actually up-leveling the renter experience and up-leveling the on-site experience rather than making it potentially more cumbersome, right? Like that's the opposite of, our responsibility is to enable and empower the on-site teams to be able to just move more effectively. So really it's about leveraging the tools correctly and making sure the tools are all talking to each other and using as few tools. Sometimes one tool is better than, 5 different tools, right? And I think that's really what, I'm seeing in the market right now is just like this overall, just a simplification and a emphasis on, just giving the site teams what they need, but not too many things so that it's overly cumbersome. But yeah, I'm curious as to how, given that there's so many different strategies going on, there's so many different tools at the disposal, at your team's disposal, how do you make sure, where does the communication breakdown happen when there is communication breakdown, right? And how do you make sure that you, as on a corporate strategy side, are staying connected to making these changes operationally and from a site level marketing strategy level?
So one of the things that I really like that we've implemented at JVM, so we use Microsoft Teams. And when I started that here, we created a group chat for every single property. That's just marketing group chat. It's my team, property manager, regional manager, and then anyone else that the property manager wants to add. So some of them have the full leasing team, some are just the assistant manager, but it's this like constant place where we can just share ideas and brainstorm. They can ask questions. You're not trying to hunt down emails or post on the intranet. This really dedicated space and we can like pop off quick questions. We've also made one that's just with the regional managers, or one that's all the property managers. So it's just like these easy places to kind of go for information. Or we've created teams as like separately from group chats that are, here's where you go for renewal questions. We created one for social media so that it's just everything is kind of in this Teams ecosystem. And that's where we're easiest to reach, we're the fastest to respond, and just make sure that we're always accessible for our team so that if there is a breakdown in directive or they're confused, we're just always available to kind of, Chelsea, your point, like we are here to support. So that allows us to just be available at all times.
We have something similar where we have just kind of consolidated everything into one place. So we have a marketing page internally that they can reference for different links and quick bite-sized trainings that we roll out very frequently to the teams. Instead of trying to get them all on one call, we do often record some bite-sized trainings that they can go back and refer to. That's a part of their onboarding process as well.
I love that. We just earlier this year relaunched our intranet to do a very similar thing where every department has a page now for the quick links, for the training. I know our marketing manager, Paula, she's amazing. She's currently doing like bite-sized trainings on Google Business, like kind of going back to like the layering element of what is Google Business? You hear like Google My Business, Google Business Profile. What is that? But then taking it a step further with further trainings of now, what do I post there? What is the benefit of this? Why do we need to include this in our strategy? And just those will also live on that department page and be able to be quickly accessible. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And I think that's so important, kind of tying back to this whole like how we're educating the site teams and making sure that they understand the full process of everything. We also have a book that we put together of kind of every partner that we have and MSAs, what that product does for them. So if they need to go back and reference something, they have quick cheat sheets. I think sometimes it's as simple as they don't want to interact with something new because they don't understand it. And once they do and see the value, everything just kind of takes off and evolves from there.
And do you find those used very often? Because I think sometimes our concern is like, we create these, online resources and potentially they're just overwhelming. We don't actually see people using them. So are these digestible enough? You're seeing the site teams really going to these resources?
Yeah, I think so. They're very quick one-pager cheat sheets that we reference quite frequently. So it's not just like, I hope they read this on the page. We'll say like, okay, this is what it is. And if you need more context or need to sell it a different way, like here's some different talking points on it.
Yeah, information is king with the site team.
Yeah.
We also have an intranet with, each department has their own page. It's very beneficial for resources. We are also working on content for our team. So we're starting to record ownership speeches, all that keynote speeches from our seminars, and kind of having one place for everybody to come and look at stuff, because as we all know, employees turn over just like residents. So we can't assume that all the employees have all the tools at all times. So this one aggregated database really does wonders.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about earlier in terms of like, look, marketing can generate all the leads, but unless the on-site teams have both the training and the tools to convert those into leases, it's a lot of money down the drain. So I'm wondering, like, what is, tour readiness and also just sort of readiness from the site teams look like in order to effectively convert like these showings into leases? Are there one or two things that are the most important that oftentimes get dropped? I'd love to hear from you guys.
One of the things that we've had a pretty big emphasis on in the last year is just even like the tour path of like, that's also part of your marketing this community. What is the route you're going to take somebody? Are you going to go past the peppers? Or are you going to go through the Proehl in the garden? And just like having like this executive presence on site so that you look polished, you look professional, you're taking them on this beautiful route. Otherwise, we will, to your point, we'll have spent all this money to send these qualified leads. They're interested, they get there, and then it just falls flat and it doesn't live up to their expectations. So making sure that that polished presence online carries through and shines even more when they get there, I think is hugely instrumental in just like the on-site marketing of this.
This is where the brand shows up, in my opinion. The user journey, your experience. For Ovation, our differentiator is a lifestyle program, which I'm the director of. So we offer an events package and a community package that's part of our brand. We're a wellness brand. We're a community brand. So we just do that to drive that home as well. But I'll also notice that on site, the user experience is very important. Like you said, the tour path, because what the resident is going to see on the tour path is what they're going to see when they live there. So everything needs to be representative of what they're going to see when they live there. And it can't be a facade because they'll snip it out really quick. But in that tour path, what does the signage look like? Is it just a typed up flyer on Microsoft Word and slapped to the sliding glass door? Is the place clean? It should be. All these little things matter to the user or to the prospect.
Totally. And you talk about like programming. I think that's really interesting. And you see programming as a big differentiator. Is this like an upsell that is made during leasing or throughout one's residency? How do you guys really make programming one of your key differentiators?
Yes. So we do charge a fee for the programming, but the fee is also inclusive of internet. So the fee funds their monthly internet so they don't have to go outside another internet service provider. And we actually get a really good deal. So they get value in getting the monthly internet service and then a very robust schedule of events like brunches, best game night, market street night. We have food trucks, DJs, fitness classes on the lawn, activated courtyards. It is a whole thing at the Vibe, for sure.
That sounds really special. I can imagine the turnout you guys get for those as well being pretty strong, and also a very curated community of folks that are looking for that. So
I think that's the most important too. The experience piece is not only what is converting them into leases, but it's also the retention of keeping them there.
Do you see that impacting the retention numbers as well?
So I don't see like a direct correlation. I haven't done the math per se, but it is a retention strategy of ours. Is we want to keep them there, obviously. And in order to do that, you have to provide a fun environment.
We actually have, Shellie, this is so interesting because I haven't met anyone in this space that has a similar role to you. We have a director of hospitality who we thought was unique until I met you. But essentially, he helps to program the different communities, and they all are white labeled under RangeWater. You won't see RangeWater's name plastered on anything. And so he has to really tailor that strategy and that messaging per property to make sure that we have the right programming on site and that with the right demographics and audience taken into consideration of, is this the experience that they want on site. So it's a lot of communication and some different case studies with the residents on, we have an initial idea of events that we roll out in the beginning. And a lot of times that does evolve because we get their feedback on what is most beneficial to you guys. And sometimes we do pivot, but ultimately that leads to happier residents and better retention.
Yes, it does. And they love their events. They love to do all the fun stuff.
But I'm wondering, for you guys, are you guys very intentional about just staying very hard and fast in the events in order to create a specific environment? Or how do you think about it?
Yeah, so this all comes back to brand standards and brand guidelines. So we have specific standards and guidelines. Do we deviate from time to time? Slightly, but we always keep that in mind when leveling up the events or keeping or engaging feedback. Because I survey the residents quite frequently to get their pulse on the events. I have an event app that will send them a survey after every event that they attend. And I can then go into the database on the back end and look at all of the feedback. And they can rate it from a 1 to a 5. And then there's also a field for them to write in their physical comments. So I always take that into, consideration for the next month or for the next year. And every month is always so different, right? But everything comes back to the brand.
Do you generally get pretty good responses on that when you're surveying them?
Yeah, we do. We get, I think my average right now across the portfolio is like a 4.7 out of 5 stars.
It's amazing.
Wow.
As far as event ratings, yeah, they love to use the app too. And it's convenient for me, so I can always keep a pulse on it.
And you said you're surveying them during the event or after the event?
The app will send them a survey right after the event. If they RSVP for the event, once the event ends, it will send them a digital survey through a notification.
I would love to pick your brain more on this. This is,
I think we're all very curious.
yeah, I have so many questions. It's such a cool. We brought on a senior director of leasing in December, and one of her huge focuses has really been like resident engagement for retention, so that the marketing doesn't stop once somebody leases, but it continues, and we want to keep them. We want to activate the spaces. And so she's been building out like an event tracker for that purpose, so that after every event, we could be like, how much money did we spend? What was the cost per head? Was it well attended? Did we like it? Did it fit with our brand standards? And she's built out like an event a la carte menu of here's the time of year, here's the kind of vibe, here's the space size, here are the event topics or, styles that fall into that, so that we can start to have the kind of data that you're referencing. Now you're talking about an app, and I have a lot of questions because that sounds really streamlined too.
It is. It can be challenging though, what I found, because, our residents, you don't want to fatigue them with anything. You don't want to spam them with rent texts. You don't want to spam them with event texts or emails or renewals, or, you want to be chill. So what I did is when I introduced this other app, I had to contemplate, what is the risk versus the reward, because they already have an app to go pay their rent. And then that app also has an event section, but that event section doesn't do what I need it to do. And I tried to work with a developer. It's not possible. And it's a very well-known app. So I had to get a third-party app that actually interfaces with our leasing software. And then it is a separate app for the residents to download, but it sends reminders. It gives all the information. It lets me collect data. It lets me collect RSVPs. It lets me collect how many people checked in. It lets me verify residency. It's all the things that I needed that our primary source couldn't offer. But I thought the residents would be confused. No, because as soon as they sign a lease, it sends them an email to sign up for that app as well. And it's like, this is where all your event stuff is. If you want to know where all the happenings are, you need to download this app. So our adoption rate is actually pretty high for that as well.
I feel like that's helpful that you're creating another channel to communicate with them too for updates, and if an event changes, like they've got everything right there live.
Exactly. It makes it so easy for me. And to centralize it, because that's the thing, because I'm doing this across, 14 properties. So I need to have an eagle eye view, and I need to be able to drill down and see what monthly events are going on at each property.
Yeah, running this at scale I can only imagine. I think we all have so many questions for you. We're probably going to pull you aside and ask you exactly how you implemented this. But cool. I think we're almost at time here. So I just had one last kind of closing question, really around sort of like the future of like marketing enablement. So would love to understand, like, where do you think the future is going based on, kind of where we've been going already in terms of the best ways for, marketing teams to enable on-sites and enable even more greater business efficiency? Anybody can take it. It's a broad question.
I'll take a stab at it. So for me, I think that I personally am seeing the future is leaning very heavily into AI, and it's if we want to embrace it or not. I think that it's going to be a very helpful tool from an efficiency standpoint to help us get things done correctly with less human error and really help the team on things so they can focus on the actual experience that they're creating and what we have hired them and want them to do physically on the ground. And then I think from a marketing standpoint, what I'm really excited about with all of the AI automations and new iterations of BI is just, I think we're going to get so much better reporting and data, which is only going to help us build out and craft better strategies. So I'm leaning hard into it.
You guys seen the meme about if you throw AI at a fragmented process, all you get is fragmented result?
Oh yeah, that's my theme for the longest time, honestly, ever since I started this company. And I think it's very true, right? Like the way I see it is like you have, and this has been a challenge with this industry, or maybe every industry, I don't know. I only know this industry, is people want you to automate this specific thing that they've been doing. And it's like, well, yeah, we can automate all these specific things, but then we're just automating like a kind of a shitty process, guys. Like maybe we should just rethink like what we're actually trying to do, right? It's like, no, I want you to send like 6 follow-up messages in this order and like, all this stuff. It's like, well, but like, aren't we trying to sign leases? Like, are we sure that like that's the exact way we have to do it? And I think that's the challenge, is like, we don't want to just automate a shoddy process. We have to remember that like we're all here for the resident, right? And we're not here to just automate the tasks that we've always done without rethinking what we're trying to actually do. And I think that statement definitely lands very true for me. It's like when you automate a shoddy fragmented process, now you just got a shoddy fragmented process on steroids. And nobody's monitoring.
But you're scaling.
I feel like it's so easy, like from the corporate or support end, to be like, this is going to be seamless. But then if you just take the time to be the resident or the prospect, like I'm a renter, and I think the majority of our corporate office own their homes. And so to have kind of like the renter perspective has been really interesting, I think, to kind of include in our strategies. But I even was trying to tour an apartment a couple weeks ago, and I had to fill out a form. Then I got 3 phone calls from 2 different numbers. I got texts from 4 different numbers, all of the same questions. And then finally an iMessage from the leasing agent. And he's like, hey, I'm really sorry. We're trying out a new AI bot, and I don't think it's going very well. I was like, no, I'm really sorry. I'm also going to cancel my tour because this is going so poorly. But just to see, like on their end, they're like, we've implemented AI and this is so cool. And it's like on my end, that was a nightmare of 2 hours of just getting spammed by other phone numbers. So it's kind of like, see, what are we doing to people? Like, what does it actually look like when we're putting in what we think is like a fun, cool process for everybody?
The single most important thing you can do.
Yeah, it really is. And it's unfortunate that that's the truth right now. It's like, I've tried to do like self-schedule touring or just like on day of touring. And like, it's impossible at some of these communities now. It's like, oh, you got to call this, call the number, and then you can't speak to anybody. It's an AI. And then you're like, well, I'm on site. And they're like, the building's locked. Or you had to have a tour before. It's like, oh my God. Like, I can't even just like, there's no such thing as curb appeal. There's anti-curb appeal at this point. You have to talk to an AI in order to get a tour. So 100%, like, we're doing I'm actually hosting a session at AIM, if you guys are ever attending, called like for AI fails, like what the state of the union looks like right now with how poorly AI has been implemented across so many portfolios. So this is right up the alley, and I'm glad that other people are aware of it. No, there needs to be more corporate people that are renters and actually go through the rental process, because it's not great.
I sadly won't be this year, but my team member Paula will be, so I could put you in touch with her. Super cool.
I'll be at AM too, Kendrick, so we'll have to plan a time to meet,
yes.
And I will try to make it to your session. I'm speaking on Tuesday, so hopefully we don't intersect.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. What today's conversation makes clear is the gap between marketing strategy and on-site execution isn't always a technology problem. It's an education and alignment problem. When on-site teams understand the marketing engine they're operating inside of, the channels driving their leads, their funnels, and moving prospects through the funnel, and metrics that actually matter, everything performs better. Conversion goes up, follow-ups gets faster, and the prospect experience becomes more consistent and on brand for that community. We also learned that many communities within a specific portfolio might have various different brand strategies, and how on-site teams and regionals can effectively guide that brand strategy while also keeping into account the overall brand strategy for the company. Shellie, Chelsea, and Angie, thank you for bringing your tactical honesty today. This is exactly the kind of conversation the industry needs more of. And to everyone watching, if the one thing you take away from today, let it be this: your leasing team is your final conversion engine. So don't forget it, right? You can do all the work in the world of making your marketing funnel as efficient as possible, but if your operations and your team are not aligned, then it doesn't matter. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in.